My deepest secret is this: the day my younger sister turned 18, my life changed forever. And it changed in this way. That was the day my family made me know that, there is a thing called favoritism. That was the day I understood what it meant to be invisible in your own home. You see, people always assume that favoritism is all about the little things, like who gets bigger piece of chicken at dinner, or who gets the way uh, when there's a fight over, remote, and these, kind of things that parents do, you know, by siding to some children at the expense of others. Favoritism is bigger than that. It's deep and it shapes you in way you don't even realize until years later. Well, I am a firstborn in my family. I grew up as a firstborn, and as many could think that being a firstborn comes with lots of privileges like respect, leadership, you know, um, uh, you are the pride of the family. I mean, you are the firstborn. But in my house, that was not the case. It was different. My parents, adored my sister, um who was very lovely. I don't want to disagree that, but again, it was too much. This is a child that my parents called her a miracle baby. They desired, uh, they destined her for greater things, and they didn't say it. They lived it. They practiced it. They they did it like you could see it in actions. When I was a child, if I could score 90% on an exam, my father would just nod and say, "Good boy, try harder." But if my sister scored 70%, the whole house celebrated like she had won gold at Olympics. I didn't take that, as a big deal. You know, in most of the cases, if I wanted new shoes, maybe new clothes, maybe I would be told, be patient. Money is tight. They will talk about the economy, being, very tight. So I assumed, and them being my parents, I believed them. But many times when my sister wanted her own things like dress, new shoes, somehow the money out of nowhere appeared, and she got it the time she wanted. Even my relatives noticed this. Most of the time they called her princess, and me they called uh they called me the responsible one, as if responsibility was a crown. I learned early to swallow it, to borrow it, to live with it, and most of the times I told myself it didn't matter. I convinced myself love doesn't need proof, but deep inside I was keeping a score. Fast forward to my 18th birthday. I still remember the smell of the kitchen, fried tilapia and ugali, a normal food in our house. And mind you, it was on my birthday. It was just the four of us at the table, No music, no decoration, no guest, just a normal day. On that particular day, my father had a small gift for me, which was wrapped in a box, and he presented that gift to me by sliding on the table and, said, the three words that he always say on each and every birthday of mine: Happy birthday, son. Inside the box, there was a silver watch, these cheap ones, the kind of watches that, they look shiny, but as time goes by, the plating starts to fade. I smiled, thanked them, and wore it proudly. I mean, what else? What else could I do? I don't know then that exactly 1 year later, it was my sister's birthday. She turned 18. That watch would become the symbol of everything wrong in my family. Her birthday was an event. Relatives from all over were invited, neighbors, and even, family friends, and the students that my sister, you know, go to school with. Music was there. The compound was decorated with balloons. It was like, you know these high end, you know decorations that are always done, and this was all because she was celebrating her birthday. I was there. I was a present brother. I stood in the crowd clapping, but all this time I was pretending to be that supportive older brother. I had no idea what was coming. Then my father walked out with car keys, and it was not just any car, it was a Mercedes Benz. You heard me right, a Mercedes Benz. My sister screamed, covered her mouth, and jumped into his arms. The people who were around, the people who were present, roared. Cameras flashed. Now, it was now my mother's turn, and she announced that they were giving her 5 acres of prime land, the land that I thought would one day be shared. They gave it all to the sister. That was insane. My sister sobbed, hugging them as if they had handed her heaven. And then my father added that they would replace their own car so that the family could match her new status. You can imagine. And if I just remind you, on my birthday, they just bought me a watch. That was the moment something inside me cracked. I smiled, I clapped, I posed for photos, but deep in my chest, I made a vow that sat like steel in my bones. One day, they will regret choosing her over me. One day, they will look at me and wonder how they ever underestimated me. That night, while everyone danced, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my cheap watch on my nightstand, my sister's new car keys downstairs, and in that silence, something darker woke up in me. I didn't want to fight them. I didn't want to shout. My revenge would not be noise. My revenge will be success. Success that is so loud that will even silence every clap that they gave her on that particular day. So the next day, I flew out of my home. I started now finding new work. I was not choosy. I wanted any work. Luckily, I found work at the car wash. So I started washing cars in the town, I also could do some luggage carrying at the bus station. I was learned a little bit, so I did tutoring session for kids whose parents, as usual, underpaid me, but it was not a big issue to me. Even my friends mocked me. They could always say, bro, you are embarrassing yourself for the coins. By that they meant little money. But every shilling went into a secret saving account. I had a job to be done. I had a goal that was going to be solved by only money. And I had to find that money. At night, I could call my parents, who never bothered to look or to find me. Sometime I found myself coming back, to say hi to them, and in one way or the other, I found myself, uh, getting back home in the evening, and during, the day, I go to my job. While my parents always smiled beside my sister, they could always, applaud her, and she was, as usual, they always treated her, better than me, but me, I could, I could go to my room under a dim light and started teaching myself. I went through articles about money. I studied how to invest. I watched videos about real estate, stocks, side hustles, everything that concerns money. I did everything online, offline, hard copies, soft copies. I was looking for hustles. I copied notes until my fingers ached. I failed many times. My first attempt at, my first attempt was doing business. I was reselling electronics, uh, which ended in a disaster. Someone scammed me with fake phones. I lost almost everything that I had saved, and I sat on my bed, holding my head, tempted to quit. But deep down, I knew that that was not the option. I remembered that the goals that I'm supposed to have must be fulfilled. If it is not today, somehow, one day. I clenched my fist and whispered, not yet, not like this. So I tried again, continued learning. I even started learning graphic designs, made posters for people. I even, sold logos online, and with the little money that I got, I saved. I started buying and reselling clothes. You know, that money also went to saving. I learned about cryptocurrency. People call it forex, but I lost money on it. Learned again, and every setback was it was like a fuel to me. It propelled me to keep on learning. Every insult was um, a brick in the wall that I was building. That loss taught me caution. You know, I continued reading everything about money, business books, went to YouTube tutorials, forums where entrepreneurs shared secrets. I discovered the power of connections. I started networking quietly, offering free, design services to business people. Just sit at their tables and listen. I learned about shares, small investments, and the importance of patience. Then came my first real breakthrough. A businessman I had once designed a flyer for called me out of the blue. He was expanding and needed some trustworthy manager to help, on matters logistics. It wasn't glamorous, but I poured my soul into it. I sweated, for that job. I worked till late nights, handed deliveries myself. I even drove, the trucks when the driver bailed. Within a year, the company doubled in size. As my reward, he cut me into the profits. That was the seed of money, real money. For the first time, I wasn't counting coins, I was counting stacks. I didn't waste even a cent. I bought myself my first legitimate plot of land, small, but it was mine. I stood on that dusty patch, hands trembling, and whispered, "This is just the beginning. From here, I will fly." It snowballed, you know. I flipped that land after a year and doubled my money. I invested in a car hire purchase, renting out cars to wedding couples and businessmen. When Uber came to Kenya, I already had cars ready to go. Each move was calculated. Every risk was heavier, but the wins started stacking. 2 years passed. My sister was still the princess, living off, my parents, her land untouched, her car serviced with their money, and me, I kept quiet. I let her think she had won. Then came another family gathering. It was almost identical to hers at 18, music, meat, laughter, relatives everywhere, and she had just come back from a trip abroad, that was fully paid, of course, by my parents. She was glowing, and telling stories about people, about, the foreign country that she was in, and stuff like that. And then I arrived. I pulled up at the gate in a Range Rover autobiography. For the people who know more about cars, they know Range Rover is not a cheap car. And mind you, this car was not rented. It was not borrowed. It was mine. This is a kind of car that doesn't just drive in. It bends, the air around it. I'm telling you, conversations stopped, mouths hung open, crowd roared, you know, and my father of all froze. My sister's smile cracked into something better. I stepped out calmly, locked the door, and walked in as though nothing was unusual. The silence was sweeter than any applause. And then someone whispered, "This is his?" Another said, "Impossible." Later, they would learn the truth that I had not just bought a car. I had bought an estate, not 5 acres, but hundreds of them. That I owned a business, and not just business, couple of business, properties. I had a partnership that they could not even imagine. I had built networks far beyond their reach. When I was at home, I started building my home. It was not a house like any other, it was a palace. I wanted to live a life. I wanted a mansion so big. People slowed down on the road just to take pictures. I had a home that declared my existence. That was my revenge. It was not violence, not anger, just success. Um, so loud that it silenced my parents and my sister. But here is the secret no one tells you about revenge. It's never as sweet as you think. My parents suddenly became proud, eager. They started showing me off, every time when visitors could come. They say, "This is our house, this is our son's house, this is our son's car," and they all of a sudden they started uh, becoming proud of me. But I kept wondering, where was that pride when I turned 18? Where was that pride uh, all along when I was growing? You know, where was that love when I got that cheap watch? You know, um, my sister, on the other hand, grew colder. You know, her jealousy was sharp, I could see. Her silence was heavier than words. She stopped calling, all of a sudden, stopped visiting. She even, stopped speaking to me except when necessary. It was as if my success had stolen her crown. And me, sometimes I walked alone through the endless halls of my, mansion and felt, empty because everything I had built was born out of anger. Every big, brick was cemented with resentment. Every coin stacked on bitterness. I had won, but I had, you know, I, I, it was for revenge. Still, I can't deny the rush, the whispers, the comparisons. When relatives said her Mercedes was nothing compared to my Range Rover, when they called me a genius, and all the time I felt vindicated. But late at night, I would take out that broken watch from my 18th birthday. I kept it, useless as it was. I would hold it in my palm and remember the boy sitting in his room, vowing to rise. Would he be proud, or would he tell me that I'm winning? I had lost something too. You know, that is my confession. My revenge wasn't anger, it wasn't violence, it was a success. Success so loud it silenced them forever. And yet, even in that silence, I still hear a whisper. Was it worth it? Was it?